At that moment, we were stopped because this police officer thought that my father was driving in a car with a white woman and 4 kids that he didn't know from where, and wanted to make sure she wasn't white.
My earliest memory, one of my strongest memories, is when I was around 10. I remember being at school, 5th grade, playing football with a bunch of the kids. And in elementary school, at least, I was one of the bigger kids. And so I tackled this one kid who was one of the smaller kids at the time. He was upset, maybe embarrassed, and he called me a nigger. I kind of blacked out. Honestly remember nothing in the next few seconds. And by the time I actually remember what was going on, his face was really close to mine. And I realized that he was purple. And I realized that he was purple because my hands were around his neck and he wasn't breathing. And suddenly I was freaked out. This kid made me lose control. This one word, had complete and utter control over me in some ways.
I had gone on a church retreat with a friend of my mom's, and we go up to the church retreat, and it's like, you know, a cabin in the woods, and so people brought their, you know, the things for the weekend. Well, on the way out of the cabin, you know, we're taking out the things from the weekend, and one of the guys I was bunking with brought a small television. So I grabbed the TV to take to the bus. And no lie, someone called the police on me.
I moved to France in 1983. One morning I woke up and I was going to school. I crossed my neighbor that was coming back from the pastry store. At one point we crossed path and I say, bonjour. And then he freezes. He's like, looking at me like trying to escape, like I was just gonna stab him. And it was so shocking and so painful for me.
There was a young white girl sitting next to me and she reached for the Coke can. And the guy said, no, don't drink that. Felt a little awkward, but drank my Coke and we kept talking. And then we got on the buses and we went back home. The young white girl started crying. And I asked her what was wrong. And she said, they told me later that everybody in the room spat in your Coke while you were outside. And that's why they didn't want me to drink out of that can. And I'm so sorry.
When I went to go visit my grandparents in Texas, and my grandfather's white, so we went to the grocery store one day, and this lady came over to us, and I was about 7, and she came over to us and looked down at me and said, oh, she's really beautiful, that's really nice of you to adopt her. And my grandfather is usually very calm and patient, but his face just turned red, and at that moment I realized that me and my grandfather did not look alike.
I was 15 years old, I was in high school, and one afternoon I was hanging out with my friend Rob. At one point we got split up, and as I was waiting for Rob to show up again, I decided, nope, I'm going to find him. And as I walked out, this man behind me said, excuse me, I need to talk to you. I turned around, it was a white guy, probably in his 30s, and he looked at me and said, I need to search your pockets. And I said, why? He said, I got a report that you took something. And I hadn't taken anything, and then I said to him, I know my rights. But I didn't really know my rights, so I let him search my pockets. I also thought if he searches my pockets, he'll realize there's nothing in there, and he'll let me go on my way. But once he found out there was nothing in my pockets, it didn't deter him, and he grabbed me by the back of the coat and walked me downstairs and physically threw me out into the streets. And I was standing in front of the record store, sort of embarrassed and humiliated, even though I hadn't done anything, and I sat there starting to cry. It wasn't until that moment that I realized being black meant the exact same thing in the current era as it had meant throughout the history of this country, that at any point a white person could harass you for no good reason and you kind of would have to take it.